Good morning, everybody. We are tuning in here to continue celebrating National Egg Week, and we wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse into ranch life today. So my name's Chelsea, and this is Caleb and Tegan, and we have one more little one named Hadley who's cozy in the stroller this morning. But we wanted to show you one of the things that our family gets to do on the ranch regularly, and that is use horses when we're moving our cows. So today we're going to talk to you a little bit about how to saddle a horse, the different types of saddles, and just ways that you can learn to be safe when you're moving around horses and putting saddles and stuff on them and getting ready to ride. So we hope you'll like this tutorial, and if there are kids watching or folks that just are interested in the process and have questions, as always, please just throw those questions in the comment. As you can see, it's very bright out here, so I'll do my best to be checking the screen and we'll get those questions answered. So we'll jump into it, and right now we'll start by having Caleb and Tegan tell us a little bit about the parts of a saddle and some differences in different styles of saddles. So I'll flip this around and we'll get going.
Hi guys, as Chelsea said, my name's Caleb and this is my daughter Tegan. We want to walk you guys through just some of the saddles that we use on the ranch. First off, this is my saddle. As you can see, they call it a wade saddle. It's a slick fork saddle, so it's pretty much straight from the saddle horn down. There's many different kinds of saddles. There's this would be a slick fork wade saddle, kind of just at an everyday, for everyday like cowboy saddle, just for doing everyday ranch jobs. It was handmade here by a guy in Burns, and I've had it for about 15 years. It's held up really good. Another style of saddle, this is my wife's saddle.
That'd be me.
And it's pretty much basically the same deal. It just, they vary a little bit, mainly here in the swells. Some saddles have swells, some saddles have slick forks. The seats are a little different, as you can see. In this saddle, this is a padded seat saddle. It's got a little different color of seat on it. That just kind of changes the appearance, kind of dresses it up a little bit. All in all, they do the same function. We use them every day. These saddles are all set up with bigger horns than what you would see on like a barrel racing saddle, and the reason for that is we use these ropes from time to time to be able to rope cattle and doctor them when they're sick or in need of veterinary care. So it's just really kind of an all-around tool that we use every day. First off, as we look towards how we use them and what we're going to do with them, obviously we want to always inspect them before we use them. So first thing in the morning before we use them, we just kind of want to look at them and make sure that the latigos are solid, especially up here where it mounts to your rigging up here. You want to make sure that right inside here your leather's good and not cracked, and that's just gonna keep it from breaking on you and causing any headaches or wrecks. So we just inspect the cinches really good and make sure that everything is usable, nothing's broke, and that it's going to work for us all day. Before we saddle a horse, obviously, we've got Frank over here. He's going to help be our demonstration pony today. We always want to make sure that when we have a horse, we want to make sure we have him tied or hobbled, just to kind of keep control of him somehow. We don't want to saddle something when he could run by us or somehow move around us and get us in a pickle where we might get hurt. So we want to be able to keep him secured somehow. We have him hobbled this morning just so you can see him easier. We've already brushed him, but that's a really important thing before we saddle a horse. We always want to brush him. We want to brush him really good, not just because it kind of introduces us to him in the mornings and gets him kind of used to us being around him, but also because this time the year in the mud, when it's muddy in the day and then the horses lay down and sleep at night, they're going to get a lot of ice and mud build up under their girth and sometimes on their back where they'll be rolling and stuff. And if any of that debris, ice, rocks, what have you, gets lodged under the saddle, it's going to make him sore. It's going to be like a rock inside your shoe. And so, if you walk around all day with a rock stuck under your ball of your foot, it's going to make you tenderfooted. It's going to make you sore. It's the same concept with him. I'm going to take this real quick. So it's the same concept with him. If we, for instance, under his girth, if he has a bunch of ice and buildup, that's going to make him sore. The cinch is going to rub him, and it's going to make it to where he doesn't enjoy having the saddle on. And if you're using him, day in, day out, he's going to eventually get sore on you and you're going to have to give him a break and let him have a few days off. So that's the main thing. Make sure they're brushed clean. Obviously good farriery is an important thing. We want to make sure they got, these horses don't have shoes on right now, but make sure their feet and everything stay trim and sound. And all that just contributes to being able to just keep your horse comfortable and keep him sound, which is going to help you out in the long run. So we'll go ahead and show you kind of how I go about saddling a horse. If the horse is new and I don't know him, you want to be careful how you move around horses. Always kind of approach them from the front. You want to kind of walk into their shoulder instead of versus walking straight onto them. Some horses are really head shy, so you don't want them to feel like you're threatening them. Most horses are going to be shoulder horses, and so if you just kind of walk in here to the shoulder, pet him, kind of get to know him. If he's a horse you've been around your whole life, obviously you're going to know what he likes and what he doesn't. So we just kind of want to assess him every morning, see how he's feeling, talk to him a little bit. And once we get him brushed off, we'll go ahead and start with the blankets. Same thing with the blankets. We want to make sure the underneath of the blankets are clean. We don't want any rocks or sagebrush sticks or stickers of any kind.
Burrs.
Just make sure, no burrs under there or nothing to be able to rub them or cause them, some irritation. So we just want to make sure it's really clean, just like we put on our clothes every morning. So we're going to bring this saddle blanket, kind of up to him, let him smell it, let him know it's coming a little bit. But don't sneak around him. Just, kind of do what you need to do. A horse is going to feel more comfortable if you're comfortable and you just, you kind of go in here with a little bit of intention and like you know what you're going to do, and you're going to just be just smooth about it. If you come in really nervous, you're going to make him nervous. So I know it's hard sometimes, but just try to be as confident as you can and trust him. And so we're going to come in here. We've made sure our saddle blanket's all good to go. We're just going to set that up on him. We want to make sure that it's forward enough over their withers. Every horse is built a little different. This horse has relatively low withers. He's kind of mutton withered a little bit, but we want to make sure that saddle blanket sets up nice and high. 90% of the time, saddle blankets are going to move back. They hardly ever move forward. So if you want, I always start my day off, I set my saddle a little bit forward. So now that that's on and clean, everything's good to go. We want to make sure, our saddle blankets are nice and square. So they're not setting on him like that. Just have them nice and square so you've got equal amounts on both sides. And you can kind of just look at that from the front. Make sure he's pretty balanced on his shoulder. And then we'll bring our saddle in. Now, one thing we kind of skipped over a little bit, and some of you may know, some of you may not. These two objects here are hanging on the saddle. They're cinches. This mohair is the front cinch. It's wider. You can usually tell it because it's the back cinch will usually always be leather. front cinch will be horsehair or mohair or something. You want those cinches hanging on something when you go to put your saddle over. Some saddles might not have a hanger, and if they don't, you don't necessarily want to throw them over just like that. Not only because some horses it might, spook, some horses it might not, but mainly it's just for, horses are a lot taller than us, and it's hard enough to throw this heavy thing up there without trying to deal with that getting tucked under your saddle, or swinging over and hitting you in the head, or hitting your horse in the head, or hitting him in the shin. So if your saddle doesn't have a cinch keeper like that, you can do lots of different things. You can throw it over your cantle like that. You can hook it on your horn. You can do all kinds of stuff. A lot of saddles have these little cinch hangers like that, and I hang my front cinch over the top of my back cinch, D-rings like that, and then it goes inside, and your cinch keeper will keep everything held up just like that. So that's how my saddle looks when it's ready to go on. I got both latigos. Frank's gonna eat it. I've got both latigos tied up here, so I don't have anything that's dragging on the ground. I don't have my latigo that's out dragging on the ground that's going to spook anything, or I'm going to step on and trip. Now, the way I was taught by my dad and a lot of the older cowboys that I worked with, I set that saddle on my hip a little bit, and I hold on to my cantle right here. That allows me to have this hand free, just so I can let that horse know I'm coming. He might have been sitting here for a few minutes, and he might kind of went to sleep on me or something, and I don't want to just rush up to him and throw it on him. So I'm going to just kind of let him know I'm coming. You want to be, and this is hard if you're younger, and it's okay. Chances are you're probably on a horse, hopefully, that's okay with, your level of saddling, and we all started somewhere. So, when I was young, I couldn't get the saddle up. I would sit here and beat my horse in the side for 10 minutes until my dad would finally come saddling for me. So we want to walk up to him and just, if we can, be as smooth as possible. I like to walk up towards him. I just kind of flap that blanket a few times so he knows it's coming, and then in one solid motion I just take that saddle from my hip and set it up on there. Now if you're small enough that's hard for you, a lot of people that the one-handed might be hard, it's perfectly okay to grab that saddle like this. And even if you need to take your saddle horn on this side and put it up over your horn so that you have nothing on this side, it makes it really easy to put on for a smaller person. You can grab that saddle just like this, and still just kind of let him know you're coming, and you're going to come up here. And even if you got to kind of inch that thing up like that, it's okay. You can get it in place. Once the saddle's in place, I like to leave that stirrup right there. Don't pop it off and let it flop down and hit him. I just walk around, and I walk around this side of him. This is all up there. I just let that saddle down, that stirrup down. And then I'm going to go ahead and release my cinches. And while I'm on this side, it's real important. I'm going to lift my stirrup up, make sure my latigos are straight, make sure nothing's twisted, make sure my rope's not tucked underneath, that everything's square and neat on him. Like I said, we don't want anything up underneath here. If we need to, we can straighten these saddle blankets, and then I just leave that cinch hanging just like that, and I'll grab it from the other side. So now that we're back over here on this side, I've got my cinches down over there. I'm going to take this stirrup and just put it up over my seat like that so it's out of my way. I've got a nice clean spot to work. I keep my latigos twisted up like that just so they stay out of the way. So I'm going to undo my latigo, and just leave it hanging like that. Now, when you reach under to get your cinch, it's really tempting just to go like that to reach it. Kind of a best practice is keep your hand on his shoulder and just pat him a little bit, let him know you're coming under, and then you can grab that cinch. You know, everybody's got different length arms, but for the most part, everybody can, you know, reach under like that instead of getting your head down, just in case your horse, you know, decides to do something silly. You don't want to have your head in a spot where you could get hurt. So now that I got this cinch, I'm going to hold it in my left hand, take the end of my latigo, and feed it through the ring on my cinch. And what I want to kind of do is keep this tension on this cinch held up instead of letting it go down like that. Because the horse, even if he's a nice gentle horse, he might kick at a fly or something, and he might stick his foot through that back cinch. So I just keep that tied up there, and I just kind of hold everything with that hand. Depending on how long your cinch is, how big the girth of your horse is, and how much latigo you got, you know, you might have to take 2 wraps, you might have to take 3. Most cinches are going to have a keeper right here, a little hook, and your latigo will have holes in it. Some people use those, some people don't. There's different ways to tie a cinch, but the most important thing is you want to do your first cinch, your front cinch first, and then it's the same process. You're going to reach under with your left hand, grab that back cinch, and snug it up. You know, every horse is a little different. Some horses are a little cinchy. This horse can be a little cinchy, but you kind of just want to put it on just snug at first. You don't really need to pull it so tight that it makes them feel constricted or uncomfortable. You want them to just kind of feel comfortable. You also don't want to get in the habit of leaving that so loose that it's hanging 2 or 3 inches below his belly. You know, a back cinch is there for a reason, and it's not just to be a bell down there swinging. So, you know, if you ever have a horse that sticks a hind foot through a back cinch, you'll understand that. But as I cinch up his front cinch, like I said, I can either put it, I'm going to take it in slow increments and just kind of let him breathe a little bit. And we're going to walk him around a little bit before we get on him. And so we're going to just cinch it up enough. The saddle just needs to stay on. It doesn't have to be so tight that you're going to go rope something on him, but just tight enough that it's going to stay on. And you can either put this latch right here through a hole like that and take the slack out and put this up through the keeper. That's what this is for right here, is to handle the tail of your cinch. You can put it that way. You can put it this way. Depends on what side of the continental divide you're on. But the other thing is, sometimes cinches won't have that. A lot of the old time guys don't ride with that. The reason is, if you know, it's just some people feel if your horse ever falls down on you or anything, that's pretty hard to get undone. Mm-hmm. I don't ride like that. I ride like that. So I go through the D-ring. I go through the D-ring, and then I just take this rough side out and put it right back through and just make a little bow right here. And that tucks up and just snugs right down on your rigging plate. And then I take my tail and go back here, so that all sets nice and flat. You don't want a big knot under here because it's going to rub your knees and make you hurt. And so try to keep that as flat as you can. The main reason for this style is just if you ever get in a wreck or, you know, your horse falls down, this is really easy to just have somebody come along and pull that, and they can get you loose. They can get your saddle off. You know, hopefully, obviously nothing like that ever happens, but it's just kind of just a little bit of a safety deal. It's nice to know you can get yourself loose if you need to. So that's kind of the gist of it. You know, I like to keep everything snugged up and tight, nice and straight, and then you're gonna go ahead and just put your saddle, your stirrup down, and you're ready to go. Obviously, you know, if I was gonna go get on this horse, I'd take my hobbles off. I would go walk him around. They're gonna let out air when you first saddle them, they've got a lot of you know, they kind of like you when you put your pants on in the morning. You're kind of got a little bit of more air in you, and you know, you need to be able to move around a little bit, and then he's gonna let out a big long breath, and you can tighten your saddle up more. You know, you always want to check your saddle a second time before you get on him, just so you know that your saddle's nice and tight and you're going to be safe all day. So, as far as a little bit of variations, if this horse wasn't hobbled up, if this horse was tied to a trailer or a fence, depending on your horse, you'll know what's right and wrong. But I don't like to get in the habit of walking underneath the horse's neck. You know, we've all done it. We all did it when we were young. But like this horse, if he's tied up, he can be a little bit just head shy, and so you know, I don't want, especially young people, walking under his neck to go from side to side. Here comes the cat. Where he's hobbled, I can safely, obviously, move around the front. Let's say this horse was tied to a trailer or something. If I know the horse, I feel perfectly comfortable walking around him like this, staying close enough, keeping your hand on him. You're safer to do that and keep your hand on him so he knows where you're at. You're safer to do that than you are to try to sneak around him right here. So my kind of rule of thumb for my kids and stuff is either when they're this size, she's going to walk clear around him because she's not tall enough. She's going to be right at his hock level, and most horses don't want to be rubbed across their hocks. So when she's, you know, his size, she's going to give him a little bit wider girth just so that he can still see you. But, you know, same thing. You're going to walk around here and kind of come into his shoulder. But if you're an older kid, a bigger kid, and you can just, you know, just walk around here with some intention, let him know you're there, and you're, you know, that to me, that's the safest option. Either stay close to them so they know you're there, or give them enough room that they won't hurt you if they're a horse that, you know, you might think will kick. Obviously, this time of year, there's brandings. We're going to be using horses a lot. You're probably going to be around neighbors. There's going to be times when there's horses tied to trailers. There's going to be times when there's a lot of horses in a small area. It's really important that you guys, you know, just be careful how you move around horses. Most horses are going to be gentle. Most horses are going to be safe to be around, but everybody's, you know, comes a point when a person has to bring a young horse to a branding or to a social event in order to get them more training. And so if you don't know the horse, the safest thing to do is always approach them from the front, kind of go to their shoulder first, and let them know you're there, you know. And then if you have to walk around, be careful walking around horse trailers. You know, a lot of times I know at brandings and stuff, there's going to be a lot of little kids, a lot of stuff, a lot of different horses tied up. Just be really careful when you guys are running around horse trailers and stuff, and don't try to walk between horse trailers if there's horses tied to them. You know, go around a different way, and if you have to get close to a horse that you don't know, always just try to come up to his shoulder and pet him, and pay attention to what he's doing. If he looks really nervous and scared that you're there and you don't feel comfortable, then, you know, go get an adult to help you do what you need to do. But you know, horses can be really fun. They can be a really good companion for us. They're a really great tool. But they can also be dangerous. You know, they're a big animal, and it sure doesn't take very long for one of them to hurt you, and not necessarily even because they're being mean. They might not be used to what you're trying to do with them. So you know, they get scared just like we do, and so we just really want to be safe around them. So with that, that's kind of what I do to saddle my horse every morning. I think we're going to go over a few different head stalls and stuff if we got time. I don't know where we're at.
We might have to save that for another video, unless you have one really quick. But also, Caleb said too, while you're getting the head stall, if you're a kiddo and you're around a horse you don't know, don't ever approach it unless you go and get an adult or you ask whomever's horse it is. Always make sure you have a parent or an adult with you before you approach any horse, even if it's just to pet them. It's just to be safe until you're comfortable with that horse and that horse is comfortable with you. So we'll quickly show, we won't put the bridle on him, but we'll quickly show you some bits and pieces.
So this is one kind of a bridle. This is a type of a spade bit. It's a teaching bit. There's lots of different kinds of bits and different, depending on the level of your horse. Most horses either start out in like a snaffle bit or a hackamore. This horse is going to be in a spade bit. He's more of a bridle horse. Sorry, you're kind of falling. So there's that kind of a bit. They usually come with reins that are all one solid piece. So they're not split reins, they're loop reins. And that's just, like I said, there's several different styles. There's that kind.
Really quick, show them the bit and explain a little bit about that bit, because that looks like a really big piece of metal that you're going to put in that horse's mouth. But why doesn't that feel uncomfortable or hurt him?
So a spade bit, they kind of, I guess, get a bad rap because they are a big piece of metal. But a spade bit is not used to be a leverage bit. A lot of people look at how long this shank is and that top of that spade and they think that's going to dig into the horse's mouth. But a spade bit is actually one of the most humane, softest bits you can use, because it doesn't break in the middle, so it can't crush the bars. A snaffle bit is actually the harshest bit you can use, because it can crush. When you pull on a snaffle bit, it bends in the middle and it pinches the bars on the horse's jaw. So a spade bit, that just sets in that horse's mouth just like that. It sets in there. It gives him a lot of surface area to be able to hold that. And a spade bit is actually a signal bit. It's not a leverage bit. So that's going to set in there. A true spade bit will usually always have a leather chin strap. And basically what that does is, as you pull back on this right here, that chin strap is actually what that horse feels. And so he feels that cue. And so a spade bit, you really only have to move, if your horse is broke and started right with a spade bit, just a little bit of pull of that is going to give that horse a cue through the chin strap. All this cricket does is it gives them something to kind of play with as they're sitting there. And it also, most of the time, this is sweet iron or copper, but what it does is it keeps their mouth salivating so it doesn't get dry. But really, I mean, yeah, a spade bit is just a cue bit. He feels when you pull on the reins, this tightens up just a little bit around his bottom jaw, and he's going to feel that, and that tells him, whatever cue you want to stop, you continue to pull on it, back up. Is really all that is. And it's really not that heavy. It's a pretty light bit. They're usually made out of silver or silver inlay. They can be steel or a lot of different things. And there's different mouthpieces. You've probably seen some that are really long. Again, those are not a leverage bit. They set to the curvature of your horse's tongue, and that horse will actually pack that bit. It's not going to be hanging by the headstalls like some bits. A true spade horse will hold that right there in his mouth, sets right behind his teeth, and he'll just sit like that all day, and it's really comfortable to him. So there is a lot of misconceptions about that. If it's definitely not a kind of bit you're going to be yanking and pulling on, because that's not its design.
A couple questions. Ricky wants to know, what jobs do we use our horses for on the ranch?
So most of the time we use them for just everyday ranch work, which includes for us, where we are a cow-calf producer. We're going to be using them just to ride in the summertime. We're mainly just using them to ride, to move pastures, to keep cattle on fresh grass and move them from pasture to pasture throughout the summer. So we use our horses to do that. It keeps the cows, nice and quiet. And I mean, it's probably hard to see, but out here, we're usually in pretty rough country, and so for us, four-wheelers and stuff don't work. They work for a lot of people, and there's certainly, you know, that's not a wrong way to do it. It's just kind of whatever suits you. But we use them to move cows in the summer. In the fall, we move cows. They help us to bring cows in so we can separate the babies and the moms, and you know, to be able to ship. We also use them, like I said, just to be able to ride through cattle, to be able to see if they're sick. You know, we ride through cattle pretty often just to look at, you know, are they sick? Is one laying off by himself? You can do that on a horse and stay a lot quieter. And then we also use them to be able to doctor with the ropes. You know, a guy or two guys, they can go out into a pasture and rope a calf if he's sick. You know, if he's got pneumonia, they can rope a calf and be able to, you know, administer veterinary, you know, assistance and medications if needed, very humanely and quietly. And that calf never has to leave the pasture. He doesn't have to get brought into a new surrounding. He can get doctored out there. So we use them for a lot of different things. And then a lot of people, we just like using them. We like the companionship. We like to be able to ride. It's a tool, but it's also just a really fun hobby and a good place to be too. So
another question, you said when you were putting the saddle pad on that Frank has mutton withers. What does that mean?
So mutton withers, the withers on a horse, that's kind of what keeps your saddle in place. And it's how steep his withers are. So his withers are basically what would be right between your shoulder blades, basically how your backbone is shaped. Humans have a flat backbone, but a horse has a very ridged backbone. Depending on how high the withers stick up and how wide the withers are, so the angle and the overall width, there's different kinds of withers. So a mutton withered horse, and it's nothing against sheep, but that's where it comes from. It's that he's got a back.
It's because sheep have a round back.
Yeah, it's because his back is shaped like a sheep, very wide. His wither, his actual backbone structure is very low, and so he's got kind of a more round back like that. And it's just, that's how he was made. Some horses, you know, have really steep withers, like that buckskin horse over there. I don't know if you can see him, but he has really steep withers. Some horses have really round withers. Depends on what you're doing with them. You know, if you're roping a lot, you know, most of your ranch horses, you're kind of going to want a little bit of steeper withers, and it keeps your saddle in place. So when I rope something on him, if he's got a really round back, I'm going to have to pull my cinch way tighter to be able to hold something on that without my saddle rolling. Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine, if his withers were a lot higher, I couldn't sit there and roll my saddle like that. So, you know, it's just however they're made. A mutton withered horse is a more round back horse, and not quite a steep wither.
Okay. Well, if there's any other questions, let us know. You can throw those in there and we'll answer them, or put them in the comments on this video, and we'll keep an eye on that and check those out. And we hope you guys are all enjoying National Egg Week. We hope that maybe there's some families somewhere who find this video interesting and educational for their kiddos. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us. At Montana Farm Bureau, we are really passionate about educating not only adults, but also youth, and sharing parts of our farm and ranch lifestyle with you that not everybody gets to experience. So thanks so much for tuning in, and thanks so much for riding with us with real life on the ranch with busy kiddos. And we hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again soon.